before, you don't have to move it with me, but when Frank talks with me. Before we start the season, so the first official play day is Thursday. I don't know if there's any scrimmages this week or not, but you know, if you can get out and work one more time, otherwise we'll be getting ready to start. Tonight we'll start with general business. So Dean, do you have anything?
No, I think everybody's got their dues paid. I got to check on one guy, Clint Wiley. Does he belong to Jersey?
No, he doesn't belong to Jersey.
He's the only one I don't have dues for. Everybody else should be good and registered. That's about all I have. I got books here if anybody didn't get one.
Okay, so if you need a rule book, see Dean. If you're down south, give Dean a shout, throw him an email. We'll figure out how to get you a book.
Hey, this year I'm going to pay everybody. Won't be writing checks. I'm going to do bill pay online with the bank. So just make sure your address is correct in the arbiter when it comes time to pay. So we'll save some postage and I won't have to write out 50 checks. I'll just set you up, I'll cut you a check, and I'll email you your pay stub, you know, your game sheet. So it'll be all by, you know, mail and stuff like that.
Excellent. With the rule books, so last week, Terry from DIAA told me she had everybody set up with the Federation. So now when you pay for the Federation, not only do you get the paper rule book, but you get a online rule book. So I'll send out I'm going to send out an email with a lot of the basic stuff I cover, but there is an app, the NFHS app on your phone. If you go there and you register using the email that you use with Arbiter and us, once you get into the app, it should show you that you have both the rule book and the case book. So if you have a problem with that, throw me an email. We'll figure out why. But that's a nice resource because you'll have it on your phone. If you have a tablet, you can get the app on your tablet. It should work for an iPhone. It should work for a Droid. It will not work for Mike Berlotta's flip phone, though. So, JP.
Game start on Thursday. It is imperative that you check your email once a day. Game changes are going to start happening very often. Lots of changes will come through the morning of. Please make sure you check your email every day. If it's something that comes through from the arbiter, it's probably a change. So go in and accept it. And if there's a problem, contact me.
Chris, is there anything down there with the contract? Nutter.
He said he might not go.
No, Chris? Okay, the only thing I know, the contract, the group of officials that's on the committee that negotiates our contract has been meeting. I know that we're set for at least a 1% raise, which is probably a whopping $1.
Well, there was nothing this year.
Okay. Well, there's something in it wasn't for this year, it would be for next year, sorry. And also there is a move afoot to try and change the DIAA regulations so that we can be paid something for scrimmages. So we're working on that. Whether or not that'll ever come to fruition, I don't know. It's probably going to be very difficult because it's kind of in the DIAA code for all sports that you can't do it. It's not a contract thing or anything like that. So we're hoping to get it done. This is the only place that all scrimmages are basically free. I did a survey of other areas in Maryland and Philly and South Jersey, and one area, every school got one free scrimmage, which the assigner down there interpreted as if you had a JV varsity doubleheader scrimmage, they didn't have to pay for the JV. So we're kind of behind the times there. So we're going to work on that. And we may talk in the fall and in next winter about if we're not getting paid for scrimmages, you know, maybe we don't do scrimmages, you know, and maybe put some pressure on them that way. But if we do that, we would have to be, you know, in solidarity to do it, to make sure that, you know, we get what's right.
It's just not our sports either.
Yeah.
It's all sports in Delaware, except for football. They do their own thing.
Right.
Right.
But every other sport, you know, and like when I was in the volleyball group, you were required to do X number of free scrimmages. And the way I looked at it, you know, I had to do 3 free scrimmages. I'm already 3 games in the hole when I start. So, you know, we're going to work on that. Mike Hernandez, you have anything new with the youth?
No, games start this Sunday. They're at Brandywine and Newark. I'm sending out an email asking for availability. So if you still haven't sent me an email, please do it before Monday night. That way I can put you on the list and try to work you in. And then they take a break for Easter, and then everyone's going right afterwards.
All right, everybody hear that? So if you're interested in youth, talk to Mike. A couple things we talked about: the banquet June 6th. Okay, as we go on the season, we'll send a lot of stuff out about that. Please make sure that's on your calendar and you're planning on attending. And then also the following week on the June the 12th is the All-Star game, and we will have a tailgate. We've already talked a lot. They're talking about some new formats for that, where they'll have the senior game and maybe an underclassmen game. They were talking about maybe a challenge game like with the Bayside teams, or doing something different where they need more of us. Our final meeting will be April the 15th. That my slide is incorrect. We will meet here on that day because that's our election day, and we need to probably, anybody who's running for either upstate or downstate should have the ability to equally reach everybody. So we will meet here, and we'll also talk about play situations and some stuff to get ready for the playoffs. That's that. Final topic is 3-man review, game situations, and elections. And with that, Frank is going to chair our nomination committee, and Frank will probably send an email out in the next week or two. If you want to nominate somebody for up or down state rep, you would do that through Frank. You can nominate yourself. That's fine. And he would compile that. So hopefully when we get to the elections on April the 15th, we're prepared to run a fair election. And the red states and the blue states are all represented. All right. Concussion course, I sent a thing out. I think I have almost everybody now. There's a couple people I'm still looking for. Is Larry Gilmore there down south?
Yes.
Larry, I
Yeah,
found all your stuff. It was in a box from last month, and I never opened the box after the meeting. So I have your concussion course. I have your test result. You're good. If you noticed on there that it said now for concussion course on the sign-up sheet, please get that taken care of. That has to be done. And then the clinic, I think we have almost everybody through the clinic. That has to be done before you can do any games. So I sent out some emails. If you got those emails, if you thought you did it and you got the email, don't ignore the email, because that means for whatever reason I don't have a record. Okay, it could be my fault, it could be your fault, it could be the internet's fault. But if I don't have a record, I have to report that I don't have a record and you can't do games. So please make sure if you're getting emails that you're missing stuff, that we get that. The NFHS test should be open. Everybody should be able to get to it. You have 2 chances to score 85% or better. Okay, if you take it through the DIAA, so you're going to go to Arbiter, DIA, Central Hub, and testing, take the test. If you take it through there, you don't have to send it to me. You can if you want. I throw it in a little folder, but I'll get all those results from the DIAA after the fact. Just make sure if you get that email with your test result, don't put it in the trash, put it somewhere just in case there's a problem later. If you're in another group, so you're in the SLOA, you're in Bayside, you're in a PA group, and you take the NFHS test, okay, not the US Lacrosse NFHS test, but the one actually created by NFHS, you do have to send me that result, okay? So just send me that result and I'll give you credit. I put everybody who sent me stuff, I put that I have their stuff on the sign-in sheet. So if you look on the sign-in sheet and you don't see a result next to your name and you send it to me, just send it to me again. And if you're not a first-year member, if you're a first-year member and you can't access that, please get in touch with me right away. Please don't wait until the 30th at 11 to see if you can access it. Because if there's a problem with your registration, We need to solve that like now. So at the very least, even if you're going to wait until 11:58 to take the test, at least go to the central hub, log in, get in the test, answer the first question, and save it to make sure you can get in it. Because if you can't get in it, then we have to go back to the DIAA, who's got to go to the test, and it could be a problem. And we don't want anybody to have an issue that they didn't take the test. Does that make sense? Any questions? Just if you're doing U.S. lacrosse certification, keep getting me stuff. We will be observing people this year. Okay, so more people will get observed this year through the U.S. lacrosse program. If you're being observed, the first 1, 2, and 3 year guys will be observed, and then some other random guys will be observed. You'll get an email saying you're going to be observed, and kind of be ready for a certain time. Is there anything else? Mike, do you have anything? All right. So with that, tonight we're going to start with Frank. And Frank, I really didn't talk about a title. I think it's kind of being an effective crew chief was the working title I had in my mind. If it's different, Frank will tell you. I really appreciate Frank doing this. He's such an asset to this group with his, for such a young man to have such a wealth of knowledge and so much experience. It's great for our group. So with that, just kind of stand here so people can see you.
I've got to pull my pants back up. He's done kissing now.
Hold on, Frank.
You don't need
Guys, whoever is listening on the phone, please send Bolger a text message to let us know so you get credit for being at the meeting. Someone is listening on the phone, not on a computer. Just let us know who you are because your name's not appearing so that you get credit for being at the meeting.
Am I supposed to be in front of that thing?
If you can.
I just want to sit at the table.
With that makes it easy.
All right. I just had this down as responsibilities of the R because I don't have any idea whether or not I'm effective. So I'm going to go through a few things. There's a few guys, I say a few, people here. There's people down south. If I say something and somebody has a question, or I say something and somebody wants to take issue with it, I've got a very thick skin. So I have no problem with making this a discussion as much as a presentation. I did not do a PowerPoint, so obviously I'm not going to get an A for this. I may, come in the range of a B-. So I'm going to start with a couple of things. First off, I am going to be very much a hypocrite when I go through a lot of these things, because if I'm working with another veteran official, I'm not going to do probably 3/4 of what I'm going to talk about today, because I'm going to take for granted that these individuals that I'm working with have enough experience that they don't really need some of these things. That being said, if I'm working with somebody who's a first or a second year official, I'm probably going to be more diligent about going through some of these things. So the day prior to the game, so this would be Wednesday of this week, what I'm going to be looking at is I'm going to be looking at sending an email, and I'm going to copy my partner on it. The email is going to go to whoever is listed in Arbiter as the contact to verify both the game site, in other words, are we at that school, and the time. And then hopefully he replies all back, or that individual replies back, and we get confirmation for the game. If there is inclement weather, as we are anticipating this week, I'm then probably going to call the next morning to see whether or not the AD is going to close the fields. With our youth, the good news for us is that the Brandywine School District has a website, and they put up on the website every day whether or not the fields are closed for any outside groups, and also whether the fields are closed for their teams. So I've got an automatic contact there. Not every school district has that. So I may have to rely on the school getting back to me and letting know about that. So now, pre-game in the parking lot, some things that I would suggest doing. Meeting in the parking lot with your partner, as you're supposed to, as was drilled into us by Doc. Don't walk onto the field alone. Wait in the parking lot until your partner gets there. Hopefully your partner gets there in a timely fashion to allow you to do some of the things that I'm going to talk about right now. The first thing I would say is just a general discussion about any game-related issues that have occurred either to you or to them, just to get your mind thinking, okay, here's a situation, here's something that's happened, how did it work, what should we do, what would you have done, do you take any issue with this? This is also an opportunity to really compare notes. I had a partner who did this, I was at a game and somebody did that, I talked to another crew and they did this. So looking and taking the opportunity to really kind of talk through some things. I think one of the things that does, it prepares you to go into the game mentally because you're already thinking about situations and thinking about the game itself. I would emphasize signaling, eye contact with my partner, and then what are flag down procedures? What is it that you would like to have happen as the R when there's a flag down? Now, to me, there are 3 different environments in which a flag down can happen. One of them is where your partner has a flag and it's something which happened to them immediately in front of them. You didn't see it from the other side of the field. They're going to relay a signal to you and you're going to take for granted, I say take for granted, you're going to assume that they have a call and that something happened and they use their judgment to make that call. Another one is where the flags are thrown at the same time and you now have 2 flags down. It is good idea and good officiating to come together to discuss it because one of you may have a hold and the other may have an illegal body check. One of you may have a cross check and the other may have a cross check to the head. So you come together when there are 2 and emphasize that. And then the 3rd flag down situation is where there is a sequence of flags. The first flag is thrown, then all of a sudden there's a 2nd flag by you or by your partner. You need to establish what happened, what is the sequence, how you're going to adjudicate that, and how you're going to talk to both the table and to the benches. So looking at those 3 situations, it means that you should really be coming together and talking to one another. Another good thing, and this happened to me yesterday, so I'm guilty of this, it doesn't hurt to say to your partner, okay, let's check. 2 flags, whistle, scorecard, tape, and timer. I got out of the field yesterday in a college game. Oh, and a coin if you're, thank you, Michael. A coin if you're the referee. I got out of the field at the college game yesterday, and it was at a school that didn't provide us a locker room, so we dressed in the parking lot, and I did not have my timer. So I went the whole first half without the timer. It was amazing to me how many times I reached for it, even though I didn't have it, just out of habit. But had we gone through that prior to the game and gone through that little checklist, I wouldn't have forgotten. So it's not a bad idea to do that. Discuss responsibilities for positioning. Again, with young officials, with people who are new to the game, explaining to them what's going to happen when there's a shot taken and the ball's going to go over the end line. I'm going to run to the end line if I'm the lead. I'd like them to come down and cover my goal in case the ball doesn't go all the way out of bounds. When the ball comes to my side, if I'm the lead and I'm pushed all the way over to my sideline, I'd like my partner to then come down and yell to me, I've got your crease, I've got your crease. So discussing those movement and coverages, that's a good thing. Another one is what happens when there is a convergence at the crease. You've got guys coming in looking for a feed, you've got a quick stick. Who's going to cover the feed, all right, on the crease? Who's going to cover the pushes from the back, and how you expect that to happen? And then one of the things I'm going to talk to my partner about is do not signal a goal until we have made eye contact. Come in, both of us look at each other, give the nod, boom, it's up in the air. If I'm going like this and he's going like that, I don't want him signaling goal until we figure out what the situation is. So you want to talk about that. And then the other thing you should do before the game is make sure that you complete the coach's certification card, putting the names on it and spelling them correctly. I happen to have a very easy name to spell, but some of my partners I know, I'm probably not going to have that card filled out ahead of time, and out of courtesy to them, I want to fill the card out correctly and spell their name correctly. So that's in the parking lot. Mike?
One other thing in the parking lot is go over your stall tactic where you give a
signal or something. Good, Mike. So what Mike's saying is another good thing to discuss in the parking lot is what do you do if you feel there's a stall taking place? How do you make that communication? what I will tell my partners is, one thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to stand up for this, is I'm going to call your name. I'm going to go, Mike, Mike. And when I cross my hands here, that's my indication that I'm looking or thinking about the stall. At that time, I'm probably already going to have looked at the clock to see how much time I think they've taken already. I may then wait 15 seconds, 20 seconds, depending upon what happens. If it looks like there's going to be something that's going to happen on the crease or a shot taken, obviously you don't have to do it. But after 30 seconds, then I'm going to say, all right, Mike, the next time it's behind the goal, in the alley, up by the midfield, here we go. Now, get it in, keep it in, so the stall is ready. Great.
Frank, great. I'm glad you went over this. If you give your stall, other people got
Your
other
partner.
stall. Whoever gives the stall sign first, is it like implied that they will be the official that will call the stall?
No, generally speaking, it's the trail, because the lead should be watching the crease and watching the crease area. Right? The trail has got a full view of the field, and they're the ones that should put up the stall warning, the get it in, keep it in. That gives them an opportunity to see everything, and again, generally speaking, they're going to be somebody that the coaches are going to be looking to see what's going on.
So it's easy for him to glance at the clock too. If they're
Yeah.
not there.
Yeah. No, that's not said that the person who is the lead can't give the signal to their partner and say, gee whiz, I think maybe we should take a look at that. And it's true. You may feel like there's really nothing going on. You may wonder if your partner's been distracted, has been paying attention, so at least then you're both thinking about it.
And if they're truly stalling, you probably have a little bit of time to glance around at your partner.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is important, I think, for even if the trail initiates the sign, everybody puts it up so that everybody on the field knows, especially because of the whole keeping it in the box thing. If a kid doesn't know it and he inadvertently runs out of the box, that looks bad. So at least if we all three do it, we're good.
Yep. Of course. Did you guys hear that down there, Mike? You're still awake, Mike?
We're good.
Why doesn't he put it for?
Hey Frank, we had a question down here. Like for the stall warning, like your signal, like you put your hands in front of you. Why don't you do like a fist on your chest, or does it matter?
No, it can be anything. You can establish that at the pregame. I just gave that as an example of what I do and what I tell my crews.
Why you go over.
That's right. That's why you want to do something to talk about it before you go on the field, so that you'll know what it is. And I'm going to talk about something else in a second that will kind of also shed a little bit of light on that. All right, so now pregame on the field. Am I talking too loud?
No.
Maria?
What?
All right, pregame on the field.
Plus, I think we're all married, so we're used to being shouted.
All right, we're going out as a pair or as a crew. All right, we're going to do the coach's certification. We want to ask the coach and make sure that there are no special things which are going to happen either at halftime or pregame, so that we can, we're talking to the home coach right now first, so that we can then communicate anything like that to the visiting coach. We also tell the coach that we're going to meet with the face-off men. Now, that will probably last, I would say, through at least March, maybe even halfway through April. I will then, instead of telling them we're going to meet with the face-off men, ask them if they would like us to meet with the face-off men. And as I did on Saturday in a college game, I said to the home coach, would you like us? He goes, no, we don't need to. I said, Coach, I'm going to offer the same opportunity to the visiting coach. If he says yes, then I'm going to call everybody together. And in fact, he did say yes. He wanted us to talk to them. So then I had to call them both together. If the visiting coach says no, we don't need to, then we don't have to. We can let it go. Then it's up to the face-off men to comply with all the rules. We're going to get the numbers of the captains for the coin toss. And then after we have done the coin toss, we're going to give the opportunity for any kind of stick checks. And generally what I do is I tell my partner, you go to the end of one wing line, I go to the opposite end of that same wing line. And one of the mechanics that I use is that you never want to have two players from opposite teams standing there when you're doing a stick check. If I have a player from one team who walks up to the group and he wants to have a stick check, I'm going to take him all the way to the opposite end of that wing line so that I do his stick check alone. I don't ever want a situation where I have an illegal stick or a guy's got a pocket that's deep and I tell him it's deep, and then the other player goes back to his coach and says, hey, the official just checked 45 and he's got a deep pocket. Basically, now I'm setting myself up for trouble because what's that coach going to do? He's going to say, I want 45 sticks checked because he's afraid. He thinks he's going to get away with something. But if I take him to opposite ends, then I kind of alleviate that problem. Referees then going to go and address the table, talk to table personnel, obviously, especially early in the season. We need to make sure that the kids that are on the tables have some idea of what they're doing. We need to know, and it's a very pointed question, is the horn on the scoreboard clock? All right, if the horn is not on the scoreboard clock, then you've got to instruct them on how to blow the horn when the quarter is over. All right, because these kids will just sit there, oh yeah, that's right, it's over, and just casually pick it up and blow it. And with the situation that we have now, with a shot taken, it releases the ball before the end of the quarter, we're going to be in trouble. And we had that issue the other day. It's not an issue, but we had that situation the other day where it was difficult to really be able to find the correct position in a three-man game. In two-man games, it's going to be really, really tough for us to adjudicate that correctly. Tower Hill. Tower Hill has a goalpost at the end of the field where the scoreboard is, and if you are the trail and you're looking at the clock, the goalpost split the clock in half. It's really tough to see what's going on there. So you're going to have to do whatever you can to get in some sort of position to see what's going on and be able to call that. And if you're the lead and you're also responsible for that clock, it's really tough because now you've got the crease, the guy making the shot, and the clock at the same time. It's going to be virtually impossible to do it correctly. And at the same time, while I'm talking to the table personnel, I'm going to expect the assistant or my partner to check the nets to make sure that the nets are okay after they're done with their warm-up. So anything down south that I may not have mentioned that somebody brought up or thought of?
Nope, we're good.
No? Anybody here? Anything? Okay.
Just the penalty time. We're going to do it off the big clock or off the watches or with the benches.
Okay, Dean's saying penalty time, talking about at the table.
At the table.
At the table, yeah. Part of what you need to talk about at the table. I didn't go into it in really in depth, but yes, at the table, you need to talk to the people who are operating the clock and find out, are they going to have a separate penalty time clock or are they going to work off of the game clock? Obviously, the best thing to have happen is that they work off the game clock for consistency, but for some of them, that becomes advanced math skills, and you really have to work with them. So we need to think about that. Anything else? Ray, you had your hand up?
I was just wondering which would take priority, you know, the visible time on the clock when it goes to zero or the horn blowing?
The horn.
You know, you're kind of...
It's got to be the horn, because actually, when the clock goes to zeros, there's 9/10 of a second left to go all the way to zero. And at least I don't know of any of our clocks in the state that go to the 10th of the second, do they?
Yeah.
Has anybody have one?
There's a few of them.
There are
There's a few now.
Well, that's
Yeah.
great. If they go to the 10th of the second, you're okay. Then they go to zero and you're fine.
But consistently, we'll go by the horn, and the only
Yeah.
exception to that would be if, for whatever reason, you know there was no horn.
Yeah.
And if there's no horn, then, you know.
If you go by the horn, you don't have to worry about watching three things at once.
Well, if the horn is on the clock, you're fine. You know, you're really in good shape. If the horn is not on the clock and it's sitting at the table with the timer, then that's the one that you really have to be concerned
Glasgow and
with.
Hudson are perfect examples that they don't have.
And if for whatever reason the horn doesn't go off, you've got to use your judgment as to when to kill it.
Yeah, and Mike just brought up a good point. If you're on a field where there is no scoreboard clock, you really need to communicate with that table when you want the alert that when the time is within the last minute, the last 30 seconds, the last 15 seconds, and a really loud countdown of the last 10. That's what you need to have. Many of you in the room can remember when they used to come out onto the field and run up and down the field with us. Well, they're not doing that anymore, and then putting this last second shot in has made it even more difficult. But if there's no scoreboard clock, make sure that you tell them you need to know when the end of the period is coming up.
And I do, Frank, I ask them if they're in settled offense. So there's 10 seconds to go and they're at one end of the field or the other, at least step out to the edge of the box so we can see them when they're counting. Because usually they've got a clock.
Yeah.
And be loud. And I think if we all do that, then they'll get the message that that's important for us to do, especially now that we're going with this, shot after, at zeros.
Right.
And again, the horn is the indicator. Unless something really gets effed up, we go with the horn. And if we do that consistently, if everyone does it at the horn, coaches really can't argue. The only time it would happen is if, the horn doesn't go off, okay? And the other thing with the horn, you get there for a JV game, they don't have a horn, don't penalize them. But tell them they're going to be penalized if they don't have a horn by the start of the varsity game. And game 1, take the ball away. Don't wait, nothing else. They were all at the meeting. They all had an opportunity. They have to have a working horn now. It's super important because it really matters. And it could determine a game.
Wasn't that horn at Tower Hill really weak?
I didn't hear.
Yeah, we didn't hear it the other day.
There's a couple that are pretty weak.
Yeah, and if you get there and the scoreboard horn is really weak, in your game report, tell JP their scoreboard horn was really weak. JP will email the athletic director immediately and say you have to get, an air horn. You either have to get your horn fixed by your next game, or there has to be a horn at the table.
Okay.
We've gotten away from that because we don't do sideline horns, but now it's important. We can't wait. We can't give them warnings.
Yeah.
So the warning is if the JV game is first, they've got an hour to find a horn. And a whistle doesn't count. Some of them will try and throw out the coach's whistle at you. It's got to be a horn.
Bill.
Yeah, I checked the nets earlier before the warm-ups end because some of these nets are terrible. And I've had cases where it took them 5 minutes and a roll of tape.
All right, good point. Bill is saying that checking the nets early is not a bad idea. And I agree. There are some of them that are really ratty. And if you get there, it doesn't take a whole lot to see a bad net. If you get there and see that net's bad from where you're standing, I would definitely say to the coach right away, hey, coach, you got to take care of that before we do anything else. Karen?
You were talking about a list to make sure you have everything. I have a printed list on my phone that I look at every game before I go out, and it has everything. I mean, it has shoes, socks, pants, belts. I mean, everything that I need to go out there, gum, and it works. It still works. I can't knock on wood, but I can't remember the last time I found something.
We all have to do whatever we need to do to make it work.
Should we throw some zip ties in our bag just in case?
Mike is saying, would it be a good idea for us to have zip ties? I hesitate to say that because I think you're setting a bad precedent.
They rely on it.
Yeah, that they will start relying on us. Oh, the last guys took care of those holes. How come you're not taking care of the holes?
And again, if you have a really holy net and you're not at a Catholic school, put that in your game report. The net was dry rotted. It was terrible. We tried to fix it as best we could. JP will email the AD, say you got to do something about the nets. Same with and we're going to talk about it in my part, but anything odd on the field, we're going to go with it, but make sure JP knows early any issues we have with fields, equipment, nets, score tables, anything.
Okay.
Jack, going back to the horn. Horn goes off while you're sure it's still in the cross. We're still whistling to signal in the game?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got the
If
shot's
it's
gotta
not
be out.
go,
When
we're
the
waiting.
horn, right? When the horn, the key is if that has left his stick, you don't blow the whistle.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
But I just want to make sure when it blows and we're sure it's still in, we're whistling.
Right. Because then that signals that this is not going to count, whatever it is.
Yeah, and we had that conversation at an earlier meeting. If somebody screws it up and blows the whistle, well, the shot's in the air, you have no choice but to take the goal away. No choice. There's zero choice. If we screw up, we've got to eat it and we got to take it. So the mechanic is make sure that we're talking to each of our partners. Whoever's seeing a clock, we got 30, we got 20, we got 10, we got 5. Hold your whistles, especially if they're an offensive set. Okay? It's fine if the whistle goes off way after the ball dies. It's not good if the whistle goes off when the shot is in the air. And the big one to watch too, remember this in your mechanic, if the defense picks up a ground ball with 0.9 seconds to go and you're the new lead, you can't say, cool, I can relax now because the ball's down here, because now they have a reason to chuck it to the goal,
Right.
and you better be there and make sure it doesn't hit an offensive player, that it really goes in and all that.
But it's got to go in the air.
No, it can hit the
It can
ground.
bounce the
Up
whole
behind
way
you,
in.
right.
Yep, as long as it doesn't hit
wanted to
an
make sure.
offensive player. Okay, so we're going until that shot comes to its natural conclusion. Okay, or it hits an offensive player, a defensive player scoops it up, goes out of bounds, goes past GLE, whatever. But no, it can be a bounce shot, it can be a 10 bounce shot, it can roll in. There's the great shot of the MLO guy turning around, picking up his water bottle, and a ball whizzes right by his ear in the goal. That's a professional. He was being paid to stand in that goal.
Yeah.
And he was picking up his water bottle, and the other team scored. And MLL, that was 2 points.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. Another same situation, shot at the end. And this, I think, will probably happen in Delaware, is that a defender will try and catch the ball out of the air, and it'll get past the goalie because it's deflected. Because the long pole will put his stick up to think he's being cool, catching it, and it deflects and goes into the goal. If that was thrown before the clock hits 0, it's going to be a goal. So again, I think Greg's point is really good, is that if you are the trail, don't relax. Don't relax, because you're going to find all these kids at the end of a quarter just chucking the ball as hard as they can. Some of them, unfortunately, even after the whistle's been blown and the horn is going off. We have to be careful about that. I had a college game on Saturday, and the one coach was really mad because at the end of halftime, the kid he thought shot the ball too long after the horn had sounded. In our minds, he was in the shooting process and just continued with his shot, and the horn went off. And he said, my goalie's going to get hurt. I said, goalie shouldn't relax immediately when the horn goes off. The goalie's still got to be somewhat vigilant about what's going on. So it wasn't on us, it was on them. Nothing happened. We're lucky.
I'm going to go back to my question.
Okay.
But, so it's the top of the post. Let's just say, comes back in the field of play. Doesn't come to a complete stop, it slow rolls, just say it's a field with an angle or something, and it just kind of slow rolls. That's.
And backspin and bounces in.
That's it.
I've seen that happen. Hits the top of the pipe,
Right.
comes down to the ground, and then goes into the goal.
Right, but I'm not saying an immediate into. I'm saying if it, let's just say, again, hypothetically, it's a field that's not quite even, and it doesn't come to a complete stop, but then slowly rolls, slowly rolls across that goal. That's still good.
No, that's still good.
That's a goal. As
goalie,
long as something else didn't change.
Yeah, right,
its
exactly.
impetus.
There wasn't any
So
other
if a
evidence.
defender goes to scoop it out of the goal,
Right.
and as he's doing that, he throws it in the goal, that's not going to be a goal. If it deflects off his stick and he has no control of it, then it's going to be a goal. If it bounces, hits the back of the goalie and goes in, that's a goal.
Yeah.
That would normally be a goal, so that's a
No, I was
goal.
just gonna say-
But if the goalie, somehow changes the impetus, he goes, he does one of those oh shit slides.
It's just like a shot that's rolling to the end line.
I get it.
Okay. I'm gonna set up a scenario here for you and hope that it never happens to you. You meet in the parking lot and you talk to your partner, and your partner just had a game with one of these two teams, a couple of days before, very contentious interaction with he and one of the coaches at that game. This is my pregame with that particular individual when he tells me. First off, we're going to talk to both coaches and we're going to pretend like nothing happened. We're going to keep our voices at a very low tone and volume, and we're just going to have a conversation, right, without any indication that there's any history with anybody here. Right? Second thing, if there are situations during the game where the partner, the one who had the contentious issue before, right, starts to get chirped at by the coach, the better mechanic is for the R to be the one who throws the flag, not the guy that's being chirped at because it's a holdover from the last game. Because then it's like he's personalizing that particular situation. Another good mechanic, if possible, and this really, scenario-wise, it's tough to set up. But if it happens and you and the coach are close enough and he's chirping, don't throw the flag, drop it. Just take it out of your belt and drop it onto the ground. That doesn't bring emphasis and doesn't bring everybody looking at what's going on. Basically, what you're communicating is, Coach, you crossed the line, but this is between me and you. I'm going to adjudicate it, hopefully with just a conduct foul, depending upon the situation. I'm not going to personalize it. Now, if I have to, and it's an unsportsmanlike conduct, then I'm more likely than not going to throw the flag. Right? Then he needs to know, he, presumably being he, needs to know that that was definitely something beyond crossing the line. You went over the line with both feet. But if you can do that conduct foul and just drop the flag, a lot of times that can diffuse things. Very important. If you have a situation with a coach like that, your body language is going to communicate a lot. If that coach is harping at you and he finds you or sees you with your hands in your pocket, with your arms crossed, with your head down, any part of that body language is not going to reflect well on you, and basically you're just exacerbating the situation. If at all possible, we all know the best thing for us to do is get away from them. Move away from them. If I'm an R in a game like that, at my first opportunity, I'm going to switch sides. I don't want that coach to have the opportunity to bring upon himself the violation or the unsportsmanlike conduct. I'll switch sides even if it's in the middle of a quarter. Most of the games that I do as an R, that I'm working with somebody who's a first or second year, I will ask them, do you want me to take the bench side both halves? I have no problem with that. However, that being said, there are some schools where the bench side is probably more desirable than the opposite side because the fans are over there. So I'll let that person make the decision on which they would rather have. You know, you're at Brandywine High School, you're at Concord High School. No, not Concord. Brandywine or Mount Pleasant. Taking the bench side, the fans are behind the bench. So as the R, I'm going to get all the flack there is. Now, that's not to say they're not going to yell across the field, but it's not going to be as dramatic. But if I'm at Concord High School, the bench is on one side, the fans are on the other, it may be that they want to be on the bench side. So I'll give them that option. You know, I would say, you know, depending upon the person, early in the season, I've had guys who was their first time on the field. This is their first real game. I want to try and protect them as much as possible. And any of us, I think, should look at that as an opportunity to really help groom an individual rather than throwing him to the wolves right away. Greg, did you have something?
No, I'm good.
Stretching?
I'm stretching.
Okay. Preventive officiating. If you missed something, admit it. Coach, I didn't see it. What did you see, Coach? I'll look out for it the next time. Again, preventive officiating, being proactive, letting the coach know. I'm not just going to say to him, Coach, I didn't see it, I'm not going to call it. I can't call what I hear, I only call what I see. This is a real key, and I've done this, I can't tell you how many times. If you signal or you call the wrong color, and you point in the wrong direction, and you then want to have a quick restart, don't. Turn around or over your shoulder, say, coaches, I made a mistake. Do you need to adjust? Some of the better coaches, Sally's, for instance, I signal that they're going to be put on defense. Their guys are already coming on and going off. A lot of the high school teams, they're not that tuned in, but give them the benefit of the doubt. What you don't want to have happen is what happened to me about 3 years ago. I signaled in the wrong direction. I then tried to give them too fast a restart. The defensive guys were running past the guy with the ball as he's gone to the goal and scored. I was toast for the rest of that game because I had to take the goal off the board. I had to blow another whistle. Take your time. What trumps a quick whistle? What trumps a quick whistle?
The right decision.
Pardon?
The right decision. No.
No.
The right position.
The referee, your partner's position. If your partner is not in position, it's an easy thing to tell the coaches. Coach, I'm not going to blow it in until my partner is ready. I'm giving my partner that opportunity. All right, now, that being said, if the partner is walking down the field, it's not going to look good for either one of us. But if the partner is trying to hustle to get into position, especially in situations where you're picking the ball up at the midfield and you know they're going to go like gangbangers toward the goal, you want your partner on the crease. So talk about that. Eye contact, communication with your partner. Bill.
All the games, all scrimmages so far, everybody's been wearing all black.
As you mean the officials?
Yeah, the officials have been wearing all black. It is really hard to pick them out against some teams that wear really dark uniforms. The stripes are a real advantage, but I don't know that everybody's coats have stripes on them.
Most of them don't.
Yeah. So,
Well, I can tell you when you're working with me, you'll be warm rather than cold, even if I'm hard to see.
If you've got a team with a black uniform or dark gray or navy, you can't wear black. So put the stripes on the outside.
They can't wear dark gray or blue or whatever else because I'm wearing black.
That's right.
Well, then they're going away.
Guys, anybody have anything else?
It's got a striped hat. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's right. There's piping on my hat. They should be able to see that. All right, thanks a lot.
Thank
Oh,
you,
yeah.
Frank.
I'm taking my pants off again so we can finish up.
Oh, that escalated quickly.
All right. Some of what I have for the game day procedures, Frank covered. So
Greg.
I will walk
Greg.
through them.
You think that was a good idea?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
That's
Because
ballsy.
I screwed up. I'm gonna let everybody sub for a second. Probably was a good idea. They were probably happy. All right. So, game day procedures. I'm gonna run through some of this. Okay, this is the way we all should kind of be working this so that, again, we're consistent. Everybody knows what to expect and we don't end up with some kind of a mistake that could have been fixed. Okay, 24 to 48 hours before the game. However you want to do it. Guys do it all different. If you're the referee of a game, contact the AD coach, confirm the face-off time, location, special situations. Okay, JP does a great job of getting everything together. Okay, the ADs are usually pretty much on it. The system is set up to minimize errors, but occasionally there's an error. The wrong field was in there, the wrong time, all kinds of different stuff. So just send an email, AD or the coach. You can usually find that in Arbiter, or you can go to website for sports and look at the team and find their email address. Coach, AD, hey, I'm the referee on your game Friday at Concord. I have a 4 o'clock JV face-off time followed by 5:30 varsity. Can you please confirm the location and the times? My crew will be there. Let me know if there's any special situations, anthems, senior days, things like that. That way you don't get there and get surprised. All right. About the same time, the umpire or the field judge should throw an email to everybody else on the crew. Same thing, confirm what they have in their arbiter. Okay, some people, and I've done it, I take everything and put it in my calendar, on my phone. Okay, and then at some point, there's a game time change. and I get busy and I forget to change it in my phone, but I'm still going off my phone. Okay? So I might have the wrong time. So this way we make sure we have face-off time, meeting location, and the uniform. And then, of course, in that email, it usually says, hey, it's going to be 50 degrees. We'll probably go longs and longs, but bring it all. Always have everything in your car. Okay? And Karen's point about the list is great. You know, make sure you have everything. If you have extra stuff, okay, because I've burned myself by forgetting things. I've taken my older uniforms and stuffed different variations down where my spare tire is in a bag. That way, if I get to a game and I forgot my game shirt, I can pull out an old shirt. Nobody might want to be around me. It's been there for a long time. I didn't fit, but it's there. Or if your partner shows up wearing stripes from New Jersey, which are wide, and you want to match, I can pull out a shirt and we're all good. Okay, everybody on the crew confirms. This is super important. So all you got to do, reply all confirmed, or hey, I got a different time. Okay, if you haven't heard from an official by the morning of that game, at 9 o'clock, you got an email the day before, you haven't heard back, get a hold of JP right away. Okay, you know, maybe try to call the guy on the phone or go on the phone and say, hey, you know, I haven't heard from you. Good. You can't make contact. Get a hold of JP. Make sure we have it. Okay, we can't do varsity one person games. So if we don't show up, one of us doesn't show up, you know, it's a pain. So if this contact doesn't work, get a hold of JP. If when you don't get anything back, Mike's always said, just call the secretary that morning. Hey, I'm the referee at the game. I hear you got, you know, this is the game time. This is where it is. Can you just confirm? And the school secretaries are awesome. So, game day. I always meet as a crew dressed and ready to go 30 minutes before the game. Crew cards. Okay, we're using the same crew cards as last year, except this year they have the correct link on them. How about that? So I have packs of them tonight. I'm going to ask you to take several packs. That way, your first assignment, you can give a pack to your partner who wasn't able to make it. And down south, Mike has packs. Make sure you take multiple packs. They're also at DelawareLaxRef.org, and on the top, there's a resources. Click on pregame resources, and you can print them out and for yourself. Just print them on cardstock. Don't hand the guy a piece of regular paper. Okay? You're going to give it to each coach, and make sure, you know, so everybody knows what these are, right? So I always say, Coach, here's who we are, here's what you're certifying to, and then at the bottom, here's a survey. You know, you can tell them about your experience with us. That's important that we get that feedback, okay? In the 2 years we've done it, it's really shown us we're doing a good job, you know, and that's, you know, the surveys we're getting back are good. But make sure they have that feedback survey, all right? Pre-game, of course, we have the pre-game with the crew that Frank talked about. You know, even when you're, you know, I agree with Frank 100%. When you're with guys you've worked with, you don't have to sit there and go through a lot of stuff. But, you know, make sure you're talking about memos that just came out, different things you don't understand, a situation you had. This is where we learn. You know, we learn talking about stuff that happened before, because a lot of times situations come up that you never even thought about. And you start talking about it, and then it happens, and you're ready. It's always important to identify the site manager. Often it is going to be the home team coach. There might be an AD. There might be an assistant principal, depending on, you know, where the game is and all that. It's always good to know who that person is. That way, if you have an issue, you know right who to take care of. You don't have to wait for them. You know, walk around, check the field markings, make sure they're good. Make sure you know what colors they are. A lot of these turf fields, you got blue lines in the middle, you got green lines on the outside, you got white lines that are in a crease, you got an orange line somewhere else. Know the lines.
Does anybody have a unified field in Delaware yet?
Conrad
will be using that unified field. And you may find a couple others, especially, I think you're going to find schools who paint lines every week going to it, because it makes sense. All right. If you do get to a field that's using the unified field where there's an issue with the markings, play the game. We're not going to play a game. We're going to figure it out. We're going to tell the coach what we're going to do. You know, hey, coach, I'm having a hard time seeing those crease lines. See if he can paint them. But if not, you say, coach, we're going to go with what we think is a crease. And we don't want to hear about it. You know, and then just make sure he knows we have problems with the crease. A lot of these dirt fields, okay, you know, you're going to start with a crease. You're going to start with a midfield line when they do their warm-ups. And it's going to go away quickly. And you just got to use your best judgment. That's the way it is. Meet with the coaches. You always want to meet with the home coach first. Find out, are we doing anthems, intros, so on and so forth. That way you can make sure that all that starts so you get the game time at the face-off time. So if you have a 4 o'clock face-off, you don't want to find out that their little game clock that's running down. Well, that ends at 4 o'clock, and then we're going to do a 50-50 raffle. We're going to do the anthem. We're going to do a prayer. We're going to introduce all the players and their girlfriends, you know, and then you're facing off at 4:15. So you find out what it is. You estimate how much time that should take, and you tell the coach, Coach, we're going to start all that at 10 minutes of 4, not at 4 o'clock. Face-off is at 4 o'clock. Meet with the captains. I would prefer you meet with the face-off guys every game, if for nothing else, to make sure their sticks conform with the rules. Okay? That way, you don't end up with a kid walking out with the wrong, you know, a stick that doesn't conform with the rules that he's been using all season long, but you decide, well, I'm a little colorblind, and that light gray doesn't really match, you know, that doesn't contrast enough with that white for me. And then you've taken the ball away, and now you got problems. But if you tell the kid ahead of time, I'm not going to accept that stick, he can go work it out with his coach. Does that make sense? So I think it's important to meet with the face-off guys. The whole thing, we beat this to death. Make sure you're talking to this, girls or guys, whoever's at the table. Okay? Don't start the game assuming they know what's going on. And even if they're using a little stopwatch or using their phone or whatever, I always personally go off the game clock. I make a note of when the penalty should come out, and I'm looking, and if they're still in there 5 seconds later, I'll just scream and release them myself. Okay? So that's that. Then be ready for stick checks. You know, don't go yelling, you know, we're doing stick checks, but just be available. And Frank's point, you know, don't do two guys from the same team together, you know, spread out. But if you want to stand in the middle field and talk, if you're stretching, whatever, they come over, they give you a stick. And what's the line we give them?
Good now.
It's good now.
It's good now. If they say, am I going to get a penalty later? It's good now. I can't tell you what's going to happen to your stick later. Okay? And then we're starting at the scheduled time. After the game, okay? And I'm going to leave this up for a second so everybody can write that down. Okay? Within 4 hours of the game time. Okay? You can do this on your, most of you guys on your phone.
Oh, I forgot to mention that. In my pregame, my partner's doing those.
Doing what?
Doing all the postgame reports.
They are.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm letting them all know right now.
But it was DR.
All right. So there's a game report. It's pretty easy to do. You can do it on your phone if you have a normal phone, not an old phone. That's it right there. I'm still loading in all the new officials, but all the schools are in there, so it's pretty much click. If you have a school that's not there, so you had an out-of-state school or something, just put other school, and in your comments, just put the name of the school. We're doing this for all high school varsity games, okay? So if you have a varsity game, whether it's by itself or with a JV game, you're doing one game report, okay? In the notes area, just put the score of the JV game and the time that that game took. If you have a JV only or a freshman game, you're doing a game report, and all middle school games, only the A game. If you do that fifth quarter or you do a B game, you only have to do it for the middle school A game. Okay, does that make sense? We have to have them for every game because the last thing you do is you're going to rate their sportsmanship. And that's how we're giving out our sportsmanship award. and it was very successful last year, that it actually was done based on a cumulative score, and not kind of, where one team happened to get 5 votes and everybody else got 2, so we're actually using that to determine the sportsmanship. In the special situations area, you have to report all ejections, all fouls that you locked in, put them in there. So if you had, a blow to the head, you had a defenseless player, you had unsportsmanlike, you had illegal kicks, anything like that, for anybody, that has to go. Okay, it's fine to just put the number of the player. If you get the name, that's fine. If you had issues with fans, school personnel, anything like that you think is important, let us know. That helps us the next time we go. We can communicate that back. And then any field problems, timing problems, if you get there and every time you look up this, you blow the whistle, you look up the clock's still running, or you start play and you look up 5 seconds later and the clock's standing still, and you were there for 2 hours and 10 minutes because the clock was so screwed up, make sure we know about that. Because then we can tell the AD, they got to fix it. They got to get somebody operating that clock that's right. If you're ever at the fields where there's no clock, I always put a running clock on my watch for 15 minutes. If that quarter goes more than about that 15 minutes, I go talk to those girls or guys, whoever's doing it. If the next quarter seems like it's going too long, halftime, I'm doing a game time. Okay? You don't know when they don't have a visible clock if they're starting or stopping the clock. Some of them are great, some of them aren't so great. But if you get into a situation where it's really bad, don't be afraid to take over the game time yourself. Does that make sense? Does everybody have that URL? I will send it out in an email. I'll put it up on the website too.
Sorry, that just reminds me. Is that list applied to who hard to, or giving every coach first JV game following?
You're only giving you're giving one set of cards per assignment.
Just like that, then, right?
Just like that. So if you have a JV varsity doubleheader, you're only giving it to the varsity coach. Okay? You're still certifying the JV coach, but you're giving the card to the varsity coach. If you have a JV standalone, give the cards. It looks good. Middle school, give the cards. They like it.
What if the JV's first, like AI typically?
Don't give them the card.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait till the varsity.
Just wait till the varsity.
Gotcha.
Okay? If they need to find who you are, they, because you screw up, they can go to the varsity coach and figure it out. Hopefully by then, Tom, they'll have forgotten what you did. All right. Post-game, follow-up. If you have any ejection of sportsmanlike conduct on a coach, okay, a significant injury, okay, they had to land a helicopter, you had a kid, who was down for 3 or 4 minutes with a potential head or neck injury, ambulance, anything like that, that should go in your game report, but also give that to JP, okay, so we know what happened. So that if anybody asks, we can say, was there a flag, whatever. That's important for us to know. It's also important to know any situations. If you had a fight before, as soon as you get in your car, probably if you had a fight, you're probably going to be driving out of there in your stripes because you don't want to get in a fight too. But get on the phone right away. We had a fight, we had a brawl, we had a bunch of ejections. I just want you to know it's always better if JP is prepared for it than he gets that call with some crazy lunatic coach just screaming at him about what happened. At least if he knows ahead of time, he knows. Then sit down and email it all. And ejections and unsportsmanlike on coaches only, go to Bill.
Okay. Last year, I wasn't at the DIA meeting. Last year, conduct fouls on coaches also had to be.
Time serving.
Time serving conduct fouls.
That was our comment. That was
Yeah.
our interpretation. Just,
And I've talked to Tommy about it, and I think Tommy has a better understanding of why we're using conduct fouls. And he gets, half the time, I'm not, the whole purpose of the conduct foul, especially when we're just awarding possession, is just to say, shut the hell up, we're playing. Usually, if it works right, it's over. We've given him the ball. But if we do put a guy in for time serving, report that.
Bill needs player ejections too. Why do you say coach?
Do you need player ejections too?
He needs player
I need
ejections.
names.
You need players too?
Name and number,
No,
yes.
I need player ejections
And coaches.
and coaches
Okay, I thought, my mistake then. So what you're gonna give in ejections to Bill and to JP are anybody who's well, no, anybody's ejected, but the unsportsmanlikes are on coaches only.
Now, sometimes there's some egregious unsportsmanlike on players.
Yeah.
And the schools like to know about.
Okay,
So if you've got one that's outrageous.
yeah. Certainly if you have an ejection on a player or a coach, boom, that goes on there. Unsportsmanlikes, you know, well, just,
Ejected players, caddy. Unsportsmanlike conduct on coaches, caddy.
Yeah.
Unsportsmanlike on players, put it in the game report.
just put that in the game report and then we'll have it. And usually when we see one of those, you know, or if there's several, you know, then we can talk to the school. And always have that quick post game with the crew. Don't just shake hands, say, great job. Talk about a situation. You know, if you have to do it later by an email, that's always good. All right? Over a beer. There you go. All right. New rules and mechanics. We want to be running left in two-person mechanics unless the referee absolutely can't figure out which way is left. But other than that, we want to run left. It's safer for us. It's easier for us. I find it much better. Okay. Just remember, ending a stall warning. So in the past, if you had a stall warning, only a goal, a turnover, a period ending with a face-off. Those were really pretty much the only things that ended that stall. A guy leaving stepping out of the offensive box. Okay, that would end the stall warning because that was a turnover. Now, if it hits the goalie or if it hits the pipes, that ends the stall warning also. So make sure we remember that so we're consistent and make sure we signal that. So if you're the lead, if you're the goal official and it hits the pipe or the goalie, we're just waving our hand and wave it for a second, and the trail should mimic it too. So everybody knows and yell, stall is off, stall is off, stall is off. Now, if they get the ball, offense gets the ball back and they turn around and they just start spinning around, you can put it right back in, but it doesn't come back in automatically anymore. Flag down, slow whistle. Unless you're on a stall warning, they do not have to keep it in the box anymore. Okay, they can come out of the box. Everything else applies. So you kill the flag down on a ball that hits the ground, a turnover, an out of bounds, a timeout, any of that stuff. Okay, but they don't have to keep it in the box on a flag down, slow whistle. Face-offs. Just remember now, they don't necessarily have to have tape or paint. Okay, they can have the shaft of their stick just has to contrast with the head and the gloves. Make sure we're all using the phrase tops to stops. Okay, so when we line two guys up, the top of the stick is lined up to the ball stop every time. I have found a couple guys, they line up and then as you're starting to put the ball down, they slide it away. I just hook their stick. If I know that guy's going to do it, I hold their stick, put the ball down, slide my hand over top so they can't move it. If they keep moving it, tell them a couple times and then take the ball away. But sometimes it's best preventative just to hold their stick for a second. We're watching for any holding with the stick, the head, the shoulder, anything where they're pushing down and restricting the guy's movement is a violation. Okay. In high school rules, they can have body contact, very minimal. So if the guy has the clamp, they can kind of turn into him as long as they're not holding the stick or anything like that, but they can't restrict the movement. It restricts them of doing anything with the ball. The other thing too now is the pitchfork, and I should have brought the video. I don't know if you've seen where basically once the guy has the clamp, the other guy is coming and sweeping out his arms, like trying to lift his arms up. That's a hold. It's very dangerous too. Okay, there's a video out there where basically you see the guy's elbow completely hyperextend. Okay, so they can't do anything on top of the stick. They can't try and peel the guy's hand off. Once they've lost the clamp, the only thing they can really do is try to go under, okay, and lift it, or wait for the guy to the ball to come out and then check the stick, check, do a body check, something like that. Okay?
When you have the face, I have, the assistant coach said he did this, he was in college, he was college face-off.
And he's a coach now?
And he's a coach now.
Okay.
This is 2 years ago. I put it to JP about it. He said that after his face-off man wins, gets up with the ball, he's entitled to, I think he said, 2 steps before he can be bodied.
That's untrue.
No, that's what I thought.
Yes.
So I
As
kept
long as
calling
he doesn't have
it.
any body pieces on the ground.
As long as nothing's on the ground, he can be checked.
As soon as he's up off, as soon as he has only his feet on the ground.
Yep.
And it sticks off the ground, so his hands aren't there.
Yeah.
He's a fielder.
Just
That's right.
exactly. Now remember though, if he's up like this and he's scooping it up and you hit him, that's a defenseless player. That's going to be 2 minutes full time. Okay. But you could, if he's coming up with it or you're fighting for a ground ball and he's not in the act of scooping and looking down, you can body check him off the ball. Okay. If you get a big hit on the face off, throw a flag and stop it. Make them just face off. That's the whole purpose of all the rules, is to have fair face-offs, involve all the players and all that. Okay? Any more questions about that?
The other thing on the face-off is, says a legal procedure, that defensive man has to give him 5 yards and not direct line to impede him from the goal. I was watching DLOA today.
Well, in college, that's true.
Okay.
In high school, they just have to give 5 yards. There's nothing that says they have to give them a clear thing to the goal. Because in college, okay, so if, I'm the defender, he just got awarded the ball, I can't stand here and not give him an option. I have to step out of the way. That's all. Okay? In high school, if they're moving back, we're giving them, getting them 5 yards.
As long as you give him 5 yards.
Yep. All right, stick checks. For right now, the rule book pretty much says like 2 per game. I'm going to tell you, if you get them both done in the first half, you don't really have to worry about it in the second half. Let's just, if we get them done, we get them done. If you only get one done in the first half and you got to blow out in the second half, it's up to you if you want to do a stick check. But to me, if you've got to blow out, you're in running time, why even risk putting a guy in a box? Okay, that's my thing. The card test. So this video is courtesy of Mr. Forney, or not video. Okay, we're going to see some sticks out there that still are the older Federation heads. So they're 6.5, but they're less than 3 in the throat. So the card test, and a lot of guys are asking about the card test.
We had one on Saturday.
Yeah. So basically, this stick right here. Okay, there's really, this is similar to the stick he's got here. Okay,
Greg, show the camera.
I can't really work.
Use the other hand.
All right, so that's this is very close, but that's probably going to be a pedal. Okay, this one here, where it's right over top, it's clearly, not even close. But if you can get it in the stick with a little bit of resistance, you can push it down and figure out a way to get it in there and make it work, don't call it. If you're not sure, like if it's pretty close, measure it. If it's almost 3 inches, we're good. We don't need to have a billion stick pedals. Greg?
Ray and I checked 6 sticks.
Yep.
And 6 sticks failed.
Yeah.
But they only failed in the 3 inch.
Mhm.
And every stick was fine in letting the ball
That's
go
the rule.
both front and back.
Yeah.
But 6 of the 6 we checked.
And these are they're older heads that once were back when they first changed the NCAA heads and all that, were still legal in Federation. They're not legal anymore. Okay, we've given every coach one of these cards. Okay, they know the measurements. We're going to send something out to them that, hey, you may have guys with older sticks. Okay, and that's kind of what I'm saying in the blowouts. Get your 2 out of the way and be done with it. That way we don't get a million sticks. Okay. So a little resistance is okay. All right. There are some guys who believe, make sure they can see it. that would be considered legal. Of course, no, I fit the card in, I'm good.
That's the Martinez show.
Yeah. But, so this is, this is close. I mean, I'm not gonna tell you probably what I would do. I don't like illegal sticks, but,
I personally would not. Like some kids, their seniors aren't playing the next level,
Or the
like
parents.
Glasgow, where, I am not.
Guys, and lady, I have been telling them this for 3 years. It's been in the presentation for 3 years. I don't want to hear they don't have money. I've been telling the coaches this for 3 years. It's not been just at high school meetings. It's been on US lacrosse. It's been inside lacrosse.
it's been in the
for
rule book. It
3
actually
years.
was changed. It was supposed
5
to go in
years,
like 5
actually.
years ago.
Yeah.
When NCAA changed their stick like 7 years ago, Federation said, okay, in 2 years, we're gonna conform with the NCAA stick. They've extended it on and on and on, okay? So if you get something like this where you clearly can't get it in there without breaking it, okay? It's an illegal stick. Let's get it out so it's not an issue. You're also, actually, if we're only doing stick checks in the first half and we do that and we get a stick or two like that early on, we're actually helping those teams. Because later, when jackass coach decides in the fourth quarter of a close game between Dickinson and Delcastle,
You're a dick.
you're on our way.
You can't say Christianity is here.
Okay, that stick won't be in there when they say, I want a stick check on number 42, and now you gotta take a guy for 3 minutes. Okay, so, if you can get it in there, we're good. I go pretty quick, so, there's a lot of leeway, and when I do it, I would recommend you do the same thing. Only take sticks that are clearly illegal. Don't sit there and, I think it's 8 or whatever, boom. If it looks good, it looks good. I like your line. The ball came out. Why, the whole reason of the throw is to keep, so if the ball's coming out, it passes the tests, okay? You kind of got to take that. I mean, that guy runs by a coach with that, it's obvious, and you can see, we got a whole bunch of sticks here. You can look at them and you can tell which ones are right, which ones aren't. All right, avoid face-off sticks if possible. I know this is, a lot of guys don't agree with this, but remember, especially right after a face-off, okay, and the FOGO, those sticks, they undergo enormous tension and torque, and they get bent beyond their specifications, and they'll become illegal. But they became illegal because of the play of the game, the way we're playing the game. They didn't become illegal anymore because of anything the guy is doing to them. So if you can, avoid the face-off sticks. Now, yes, some guys, they face off and then they play the whole game because a lot of times he's your best guy. Okay, if you catch his stick, use common sense with it. If you think it's illegal because it's a face-off stick, but if something is clearly wrong with it, it's too short, it's whatever, then it's going to be illegal. I recommend you avoid the face-off sticks. And the only tests we're doing are the measurements, the card test, and the rollout test. Everybody understand that? If the coach says, well, it's supposed to have some cantilever, that's not in the tests that the NFHS has us do. Okay, we measure the stick for certain measurements. We check to make sure the ball comes out, and we make sure the card is reasonably close. Okay. And then the last thing I had, and I didn't put it up here, just remember from our presentation at the clinic and what we've talked about as far as player and coach behavior. We're not going to tolerate anymore multiple F-bombs, multiple demeaning remarks to us, anything like that. So consistently, the first kid drops an F-bomb or says your call fucking sucks or whatever he wants to tell you, that's fine. That's a minute unsportsmanlike. But 5 minutes later, another kid on the same team decides to do the same thing. Take him for 2. We can do that. We have 1 to 3 minutes. Take him for 2. Okay? Assistant coaches. As soon as assistant coach is out arguing a call, conduct foul. Okay? If he comes out and asks you what's going on the face-off, hey, coach, this is what I'm saying. That's fine. because usually they're helping those guys out. But as soon as they come out and they question what you're called or your judgment, bang them, take them. Head coaches, give them a little more leeway, but F-bombs out on the field screaming, terrible, deal with it. The only way it's going to stop is if we consistently deal with it. We've told them it's going to happen. The majority of the coaches agree with it because they're embarrassed by, their opposing coaches' behavior and some of the team behavior that goes on. So don't be afraid to take it. All right. Are there any other questions from scrimmages, things you saw? Steve?
I had a clear mouthpiece, but like the actual molding was black.
Could you see the mouthpiece?
That was the thing. The whole thing clear, and then when he was biting, I was like, "That's a clear mouthpiece." Then he took it out of his mouth, and then the actual molding was black.
So that too with orange.
Like where his teeth crunched down. Yeah, where his like teeth crunched down. I was like,
But you couldn't see it.
I couldn't see it.
To me, that, I think what you got to do is tell them they got to put a piece of tape or something on it. They got to do something to.
I was like, it's clear. He's
Yeah. Yeah. The only problem I see with that is that may be like one of those $100 worth of, and then you don't want to, but use your head. If you see that, try and get them to do something so you can see it.
Was the whole point about being able to see it so that we know whether to call it technical or not?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. The whole reason why they don't want clear or white mouthpieces is to know whether it's there or not. So if they can make it so you can tell it's there, we're okay with it. Okay. But, once we call it once, he's going to figure out how to fix it. And you know what? If somebody calls it because it's clear, that's not a new rule.
Yeah, regular season.
Yeah.
You're going to get some guys.
That's not a new rule. So, I would suggest to him he try to fix it. Yes.
It says not be completely clear. So one alternative be to make sure it's attached to his helmet so we can verify this.
That's one of my rule suggestions is contrasting mouthpiece attached to the helmet. You'll never miss it. But I don't know if they'll ever do that. So, if you can see it or he can show you can see it, and you catch it before you penalize them, you could even say, hey, I can kind of see it. It's got some black in it, but make sure your partners know, hey, Ford's got a mouthpiece. The big thing we're looking for is if it's hanging out, he's fish hooking it or something like that. Anything else? Anything down south from scrimmages? Situations, problems, issues?
No, we're good.
All right. Have a great season. Make sure you're communicating any problems you have. We will see you in April. Oh, make sure you get cards. Take several packs. I have plenty of them. My aides were very busy last week. They all earned an A for last week for participation in laboratory assistant.
I'll be turning my schedule back tomorrow.